let's talk about boundaries for a minute. Now, the reason I wanted to do a video on boundaries so badly today is because I am noticing this pop up with so many people. I myself am struggling with some boundary issues right now as well. So for me, this is just a sign from spirit that I need to kind of put this out there because we are not the only ones, right? There's a lot of people dealing with this right now. I think I've done another video on boundaries before, but this is what I really feel like I want to say because I feel like this is what I notice happening right now, right? There's a lot of people who are either disrespecting boundaries that are already being set, or there are people that are having difficulties setting boundaries that they need to set. So the first thing that we should say about boundaries is, well, why do we even have these and why do we need them? Well, boundaries are important because one, they protect your personal space, your time, your energy. They protect your physical, mental, emotional health. They also show other people how you expect to be treated, right? Because if you're a doormat and you let people walk on you, they expect that they can because you've showed them that, right? So it's really about creating kind of the space that you want for you in your life and creating the types of relationships that feel fulfilling to you and that feel equal and balanced. So that's why boundaries are really important. When we don't have boundaries, there are problems. The things I've noticed when people don't set boundaries or have a hard time is that they become very upset. There's an emotional outburst. Sometimes it can be thrown on to another person. Sometimes they're just upset and they feel frustrated and angry. When the truth is that they've kind of put themselves in this situation by not being able to speak up and set that line with other people. This can happen for a variety of reasons. Sometimes you have not been taught to set boundaries at all, so you don't know how, and it's hard. Sometimes you're so afraid of the reaction of whatever somebody else is going to be like that you don't set the boundary. And whether that comes from just a fear of the reaction, or there's also some other internal trauma or issues or things where you don't feel stable enough to handle whatever reaction. What I will say about that is that most times too, what I have seen from personal experience, and maybe yours is different, is that when people set the boundary, their reaction is not as big as they have made it out to be in their mind. And oftentimes they are pleasantly surprised if the person is reasonable and amenable enough to the boundary that the boundary gets held, right? And so I think sometimes too, we have to go on facts and not feelings, right? How we feel or how we think somebody's going to react is not a fact of how they're going to react, unless perhaps we have tried to set boundaries multiple times before and gotten a similar reaction every time. Then there might be a pattern, but we really need to stick with the facts and not kind of work things up too much in our head. And I think sometimes too, a lot of people, something that happens is people and individuals will avoid setting a boundary with somebody else in hopes that somebody else will kind of set the boundary for them, right? It's almost like their lack of choice or their lack of action is hoping somebody else will set the boundary for them so they don't have to. It'll create a situation where hopefully the other person will set the boundary. And the issue with that is the other person doesn't typically know your boundaries or what you want or what you need. So their choice may not be what your choice would be. And then you end up getting upset later when in fact you probably should have just said something. The next point I would like to make about boundaries, I think that nobody really mentions, is how difficult they are to set. Everyone just gives you the not the rules, but the kind of format, be like, hey, we do this, this, and that. That's how it works. But no one tells you the anxiety you feel, the fear you feel, or how difficult it is to speak up and use your voice sometimes. Because some situations with boundaries might be easy, and some might be very difficult, especially if they involve family members, if they involve toxic people, if they involve combative people. It takes a while to really reset the energy of the situation, especially if you're someone that hasn't set a lot of boundaries before. Right? People are used to not having any, and their feathers get a little ruffled when you set the boundaries at first. However, if they are good people and they're your friends and they love you and people respect you, they will have a little trouble adjusting, but they will do what you ask, right? And they will work out their own feelings about it and everything on their own time. They're not going to put their stuff back on you, right? The people who try to make it your fault are the people that really don't want you to set the boundary. They might make you feel guilty for setting it. They might shame you or make you feel bad about it in order to get you to remove the boundary, to back off. So if you're experiencing that situation, I would really highly encourage you to continue to set that boundary. They're just trying to push it back on you. And if you need a friend to help talk you through that, it's always good to have a buddy, because sometimes it's easier to move through these difficult situations with a good friend and somebody that's supporting us, instead of just trying to do it alone, because that can be really difficult as well if you're trying to set a good boundary. The other thing I think I should also mention is something that really doesn't get talked about enough with boundaries is if you set a boundary, you decide what you want, right? You be as honest and as kind about it as you can be. That's the only way to say difficult things in life. You have to be honest and you have to be kind, right? And if somebody said it to you and you wouldn't be upset, then you're perfectly fine saying it to somebody else. However they react is all their other stuff that doesn't have anything to do with you. But when we set boundaries, the important thing is we also have to have a consequence for that person violating the boundary or pushing the boundary, right? So that is where a lot of people get confused, because we go, well, what sort of boundary are we supposed to, or what sort of consequence are we supposed to set here, right? You can't control anyone else, but what you can do is you can control their access to you. You can control how they're speaking to you and how they're treating you. And you can do that by, you almost have to think of it like a little kid. Like, okay, if the kid misbehaves, you take away their television or their phone or whatever it is that they're, they need, right? Their electronics, that'll kill them. But you take something away from them, right? You take a benefit away from them that they are getting. So if someone's, borrowing money from you and they're not paying you back, or they're taking too long, or they're not paying, going according to the agreement, then your consequence is, hey, I can't loan you any money this time. Or if you give them another chance, like, I can only loan you this much money, but if you don't pay it back on this and this time, I can't keep doing this, right? There's limitations, there's things to your time and access too. So if you have a toxic family member who's on your social media all the time, making comments or doing different things, and you ask them, hey, could you back off, or could you not do, or whatever, you can block that person. It doesn't matter if they're family. You can block them. If they're not being appropriate and they're not doing what you ask, that is a consequence. They don't get to see all the wonderful, fun things you're doing if they can't be nice about it, if they can't be kind, right? I think that that's fair. If you are ever in a situation, I know this one's difficult for couples. Sometimes I'll give you an example if you need help. If you are having an argument or a disagreement in the car and you're having an issue and you're trying to set a boundary with the person that you're with, normally a good piece of advice is to just kind of walk away from that situation, right? Remove yourself so you don't have to be stuck with all that stuff flying at you or whatever, and this person just not respecting your space. Hey, you can't respect me. I'm out of here until, you can apologize and we can reset the clock. So if you're in a car, a really great thing to do is, to just be like, look, I'm done discussing this right now until X, Y, and Z. I'm going to listen to the radio, or we're going to listen to the radio, and turn the radio on. So that's a really good trick if you feel like you're trapped, because there are many situations where I do believe people, it's like, well, what do I do because I'm stuck, right? So you do the best you can with what you've got. So, but I think those things are really, really important when we're thinking about boundaries, when we're talking about boundaries, when we're trying to set boundaries. And, if you're trying to set boundaries right now and you're doing it and you're working on it, I just want to tell you that I'm really proud of you, because it's not easy. And I think people just look at like, oh, they make it seem like it is. So when you're stuck in that place of setting it, when you're feeling that fear, or your stomach's flipping over and you feel like you want to throw up, or you're not sure you can do it or say the words, I want you to know that you're not alone. That's how most people feel. And if someone's selling you that lie of like, boundaries are easy, no problem, right? Boundaries take time to work on. And the consistency that you will get from setting a boundary and having the boundary respected, no matter how much work you have to do in between with the consequences and everything else, if you can continue to do that, the boundaries will become easier to set. But if you're starting from scratch or they're hard for you, it's going to be hard, and that's okay. So just know that you're not alone, and other people are struggling with the same thing too. So that's all I have to say about the boundaries today. I hope that was helpful for you guys. As always, I appreciate you, I love you, and I hope that you guys are having an absolutely beautiful day.